What is up, everybody? My name is Tyler Potts, and in today's video we're going to be looking at Vue Native. Now, in yesterday's video we looked at React Native, and we basically built the exact same to-do app but in React Native. So I thought it'd be good for people who want to see the comparison, if you have watched the React Native, how it would work in Vue Native and how you would do the same things in Vue. There'll be some slightly differences in how it works, mainly to do with components and emitting events, because Vue Native currently, in its current version, does not handle emit events, and you'll find out more about that when we crack on. So for now, we're going to be building this app. So for people who haven't watched the React Native, there's a simple to-do app where we can create new apps. So let's say something such as Hello World. I know that's not really something to do, but create a Hello World app. That could be it. Anyway, so as you can see, we could tap this to mark it as done, grayed out, symbolize as done. I'm very lazy. I didn't want to add loads of different effects to it, so this would do. So you can tap it to say it's done or uncheck it, and you can also remove. We can add multiple, so we can say another one. And there's another one, and then we could say many more things. We could just keep adding them on, and we can mark different ones as done, which ones we want done, we can remove them, and so forth. So let's crack on and let's build this app. For now, we're going to move this over to the right side of the screen. We're going to actually stop the package manager that I'm using on the other page. Let's just bring this over here. So terminal, and let's get started. So the first things you need to do is you need to have Node 10 plus installed, Node.js 10 plus, and this is mainly for its package manager npm and the small node features it gives us for now. So just click this if you haven't already got it, download this, or go check out a video somewhere where you can. I have one on this tutorial how you actually install Node, but it's really simple. It's just an installer. You click this, it downloads it, run in the installer, and it will install for you. Next up, you need to install Expo, and if you don't know how to install this, you can check out the beginning of my previous tutorial over at React. It's the React how to build your first, or how to code your first mobile app using React Native. And you just have to watch like first 5-10 minutes, somewhere in between. It'll show you how to set this up. I'm not going to set up in this video because I've already got it set up on my machine. So after that, the final thing you need to install is Vue Native CLI. So now if you can copy this first command and you paste it in here and hit enter, it will run the installer. I already have to install, so it's going to run quite quickly, but yours may take a little bit longer. So as you saw, mine only took 4 seconds. Yours may take like a minute maybe. But let's clear that and let's crack on. So now we've got this installed, we can create our first Vue Native project. So let's cd into or change directory into our project folder we want. I'm going to go into my 100 days of code. I'm going to make a new folder called day 64 of a 100 days ago, and I'll call this VN to do app, standing for Vue Native to do app. Enter, and then I'm going to cd into that directory. Now, once we're in here, we can run a command called, is it Vue Native? I think it's just Vue Native. So as you can see there, yes, it's just Vue Native init to initialize a new app, and then we give it a name. So in our case, we're just going to call it to do app. Hit enter, and it's going to create this project, and then it's going to ask us to give it a name. So we're going to put in here Vue Native to do app, and then we're going to leave the slug as it is and hit enter. Now this is going to create us our project, so I'll see you once this is done. Okay, everyone, once that is installed, you'll see this sort of screen here. And then we can just now cd into our new project. So change directory into our new project. And now from in here, we can run a couple of things. First thing I am going to run is code dot. And this is going to use Visual Studio Code to open up this folder. But if you guys want to open this up in your favorite text editor, all you have to do is go to find your folder where you've created it, drag it and drop it into your text editor. I just have this quick terminal set up to do it faster and make it easier. So you'll see what this does in a second. So I type in code.dot and it opens up Visual Studio Code. Nice. So now let's move this over here and let's bring this full, well, not full screen, but half full. And now let's have a look at what we've got here. So first things first, let's have a look at the package.json file, as every Node project really has. It's a good package.json file. And you can see here it brings in the main, which is this app.entry.js file. And then it has some of its own scripts, which are the Expo scripts. So if you remember, Expo actually does React Native. And all Vue Native does is compile itself down into React Native and then into a native, well, the native language of your choice, such as Swift, or, well, I'm not sure if it's exactly Swift, but compiles it into iOS or Android. And that is all this does. As you can see here, we pull through React Native, Expo, React Native, and then the Vue Native core and the Vue Native helper. And as you can see here, Vue Native core is only version 0.8, which means it is quite, it's not full version, it's not version 1 yet, and it's going to be hopefully continued developed because it is a really great piece of equipment. And there's some more stuff here. So development stuff, we have Babel, Babel preset Expo, and a Vue Native scripts, which are the stuff will help you create your project. Now, after this, we have this Metro config. It's mainly for React Native, and you don't really have to touch this unless you know what you're doing. I don't know what I'm doing, so I wouldn't touch it. Same with Babel. You don't have to really touch it unless you know what you're doing. App.json is all your app's details. So the name, for example, Vue Native to do app, the slug to do app, the privacy, which is public in this case, the SDK version, which I believe is Android, is 32. And the platforms is iOS and Android. The version is 1.0. You can change this if you want. The orientation is portrait, so the orientation of the app. If you change this to landscape, you'd see a landscape app. The icon is a basic icon, and the splash image is the image that displays when your app is loading. And then you've got a bunch of other things like different things. You can add in more to this, and it will basically configure your app, but only if you know what you're doing again. So let's close that, and let's now look at the actual app Vue, the actual Vue Native stuff. So the first things first is the main file, which is the app.vue. And if you're familiar with Vue.js, which I hope you are if you're watching this, if not, I would suggest going to learn Vue. I have plenty of tutorials on my channel. But anyway, you can see here, this is why it's created. It's called My Vue App. It's got a template, which is used to put in your markup, and it's got a style tag. You can also add, like normal Vue, a script tag, and add in some interactivity there. So for now, let's just get this app running. So let's bring up our terminal and let's type npm start. Now this is going to use Expo to start our application, and once it's done, it will give me the option to launch it in either iOS or Android, and I'm going to choose iOS. As you can see here, it's brought us up. You can either scan this on your phone and see it in your phone, or you can go to this address, I believe, on your phone. As you can see here, and this will bring it up on your phone, or if you have Expo installed, of course, or you can just press I to use a simulator, which is over here. To get this to work on iOS, you need Xcode. To install that, you go over to your App Store and you search for Xcode, and it will most likely be the first one on there. Click install and it should install. If you have any issues with that, search it up on the internet. It's very simple. Just type in how to install Xcode on whatever version of Mac you're on. So right now this should be running. It might take a minute to actually open the project. Okay, once that has ran, as you'll see here, it has loaded up the app, and this is the default app. If you look in the code here, you'll see that we have that's our plate. We have a Vue tag, which is a native component inside of React Native. If you remember, they have a Vue. This one is just done slightly differently without a capital letter. And then there's a text, which is also a native component. And as you see here, it calls a class of text color primary, and which down here has a text color primary. And again, this container class on the Vue. And this is how the styling has come in here. Again, with the same, it's the same with React, but React Native, you are very limited to your styling. As in, you can't use like CSS grid and stuff, I don't believe. If you can, correct me. This mainly uses flexbox layouts and simple styling. Web styling, that is, of course, because it is native, it uses slightly different styling and stuff. But let's continue on. So first things first, let's remove everything in here. So I think we're going to keep the container, but we're going to remove the alignment. And you know, we might also remove the no, we'll keep the background. We don't need the text color primary, that's not needed. Let's remove that. And now if we hit save, actually it hot reloads the server and there is nothing there. So if I just wrote hello in here, you'll see it will come up with an error because we need a text around this. So let's give it a text. Hit save. And up in the top left, you can see hello, but you can see it's in the status bar and we don't want that. So let's create a component that basically blocks out the status bar, and then we can style up behind the status bar for us. So let's create a new view and let's give it the class equal to status bar. Let's do that and let's just call it view. There we go. Now in our container, or inside our style, sorry, we then want to give a status bar value and we want to say background color, or yeah, background color is going to be equal to our yellow we usually use. We're then going to give this a height of 20 pixels, which is the equivalent height of the status bar in iOS. Now if we hit save, you'll see this bar has now been covered and it has the new background color. Now if we place anything else, let's say text again, and we say hello world, and we add some more text and hit save. As you can see, it now sits in the correct place. Now, we don't really want to use this. We want to create components, and what components do are, they're basically little reusable bits of code. Again, you should know this if you use Vue or React Native before. They're a little bit of reusable code, what you can basically use multiple times in different ways. But let's show you how to do that. So first, let's create a new folder called components. Now inside the components folder, we're going to create one called status bar.view. Now save that and let's go in here. So first things we need is a template. So we need a template and need to build just like the app. It's the same structure, just slightly differently. And in here, we're going to basically just have a view with the class of status bar, and we're then going to have, once that is done, we're going to have a style tag, and in the style tag we're going to have a class of status bar, and in here we're going to say background color is equal to ffce00 and the height is equal to 20 pixels. Now if we save this, nothing is going to happen. We're still going to have the same thing. So now let's remove our status bar from inside here. Now how do we get our other status bar in here, you might ask? We need to basically create a script tag. And in the script tag, we want to create a components value or key. And then inside the components, we want to add an object and we want to call it status bar. But this isn't going to work. We need to basically add in an import. We need to import the status bar. So let's import that. So status bar from, and we're going to say /components/status bar. Once we have imported the status bar and added it to our components, we can now use it inside of our template. So right here, we just use what we've named it in our components and say status bar like. So if we hit save, as you can see, our status bar has generated up there. But now let's say we want to have a custom color, which we set from our main view here. Well, we can do that. So if we go here and we say color and we set it equal to the color of our choice, in our case, we're going to pull it as a red. This is going to do nothing because this doesn't, it doesn't understand what that means. We need to go to status bar and we need to basically use this. So now we can pass through props, and that is what we have just done here. we've added a prop called color. So now let's create a script tag, and in here we're going to give it a props value, and in props we're going to pass through color, just like that, inside of quotes. And now on our, so we can remove this background color from the actual. Okay, so we can bind to a style tag now instead of using the class, and in here we have to put in some parentheses, and we can say background color, and we can set this equal to the prop of color. Now if we hit save, as you can see, any color we call from any color we put in here will now display as our bar. So let's say we wanted a green. There you go, it's now green. Let's say a blue. Hit save, and there is a blue. We're going to stick to our yellow, but that is just one way you can use props inside of Vue Native. And this is the first component we have created. The second component we are creating is going to be our header. So let's create a new component and let's call it header.view. Now inside of our header.view, we want to create a template. Again, this is going to be very simple. We're going to create a view. Oh, that's not a view. View. Yeah, again, that's not how you spell view. And we'll give it a class of header. And inside of a header, we're going to have a text with a class of title. And inside of here, we're going to pass a prop. And there's another way we could do some string interpolation. What this is doing here, these two curly braces are basically saying you can add in a prop or some JavaScript. You can add 1+1 here and stuff like that. But we're going to do a title. So again, I expect you to know this sort of thing because it's what's done in React, React Native, and Vue Native. So I hope you at least know Vue and maybe a little bit of React Native, but it's not necessary for this tutorial if you don't actually know it. So again, we're going to have title. We're then going to have a script tag in here where we handle our props. And inside of our props, we're just going to have a title. And then we're going to have a style tag, which is going to have the header. Oh, and the header is going to have a height of 60 pixels, a background color of black or a very dark gray, and we're going to justify the content center and align item center so we can center our title, which is in the middle or to the middle. And we're going to give this one a color of a really light gray. We're going to give this a font size of 28 pixels, a font weight of, that's not it, font weight of 900 because we want it to be quite thick, and we're going to have a text transform of uppercase. Now if we hit save, you're going to see nothing because we need to import this in our main app view. So we're going to say header, and we're going to import header. And now inside of our components, we need to add a comment and say header. Hit save, and we still need to add it up here. So we need to say header and a slot like that. And there's our header, but as you can see, there's nothing in there. It's just a black header. We need to pass through our title prop. So again, we're going to pass through a title, and we're going to say to do app. Hit save, and there's our to do app title, and that is everything we need for the header. The next parts of this are going to be in. We're not going to be creating components just because of the fact we don't have the emit event handler in from normal Vue.js. Which we kind of need to use for the next part. So because we can't handle functions or methods between components without that easily, we're going to just write this straight inside of this Vue container here, which isn't an issue. It's perfectly fine to do this. It just means the code isn't reusable. Well, unless you copy and paste it, of course, but that's cheating. You're not allowed to do that nowadays in 2019. So now let's create a Vue with the class of input container. So if you remember in the last, in the demo I showed you earlier, we had a little input area, and we can create this Vue here. And By the way, just so you know, all these components I'm going to use are all on the Vue Native site. So if I just quickly show you that, you can go to basic components, and as you can see here, we have a view, we have text, we have an image, and it shows you how to use these too. We have a text input, scroll view, and we're going to use this text input, by the way. We have a button, and we will probably use the button too. We have FlatList, activity indicator, alert, and a lot more what you can use. Touchable opacity is another one we're going to use. So for now, we don't need that right now, but I just want to show you that you can find those there if you needed to. So the first component we're going to add in is this text input field. We're going to give it a class of input, and we're going to give it the theme model of new to do text. And if you don't know what theme model is, then you need to go and check out a basic Vue tutorial. But what theme model does is it binds this value, the text input value, to a data value, which we will set here. So we'll call this data function, and we will return an object which will have new to do text as a property, which is going to be an empty string. Now if we hit save, we're going to have an issue. Why do we have an issue? Because we haven't added a comma after our data method. Hit save, maybe hit the refresh button on this. Yep, you got to wait for it to run. Yeah, there we go. And there we go. Now, actually, if I click up here, you can see I can start typing over here. But we want to style this up a little bit. But let's also add in a button. And to do that, we're going to use touchable opacity. And touchable opacity is like a button. It has a on press method. I'm going to add an on button, and we're going to see here, you're going to see on press, and we're binding this. And we're going to say new to do. And this is going to be a method we create in a moment. Now, inside of the touchable opacity, we want a text with the class of button text. And we want to write in here add. Now, if we save, property method new to do is not defined. Sorry, okay, so we need to create this quickly. Let's create methods. And then we're going to have new to do, which is just going to be in there with nothing, just so it doesn't error. There we go. And now you can see we have this here, the input field and the add button. After I click it, it adds this little opacity effect, and that's why it's called a touchable opacity. Now, we want to add a bit of styling to this. So let's go down here, and after container, we want to say input container. We want to give it, we want to say flex direction of row, because the default inside of Vue Native and React Native is column, and we want it to be a row. We want to say justify content, and we want to say center, and we want to say align items stretch. Now if we hit save, as you can see, they're now in line with each other, although being a bit funny, but we can fix that. So now let's say input. Also, we want to give this a width of 100%, I think. Oh, and sorry, input. And let's refresh that because it's going to annoy me. Fix the bridge, please. There we go. We don't need that. We're going to give this a flex of 1, a height of 35 pixels, a background color equal to a very light gray so we can see the difference, and a font size equal to 18 pixels. We're then finally going to give the color of the text a light gray. Actually, we're going to do it slightly darker because we want to be able to read the text. And there you go. But you can see here we have this little text area. But now we need to style the button. So let's give it the add button. We'll give it a width of 100 pixels and a height of 35 pixels. Let's add the background color of our yellow. And then let's do justify content center and align items center, just so we can, there we go, nice and styled. We then want to add in the button text. So we want to say button hyphen text. We just want to say font size 18 pixels and probably font weight of 700. There you go. So now that is there. So now we can type in here hello and click the add button, but it doesn't do anything yet. And we'll hook that up to the new to do in a moment. But before we do that, let's create some more data. So now in here we want a to-dos array because we need to store it somewhere. So we're going to have a to-dos array which is going to have objects, and in these objects we're going to have an ID which is going to be equal to 0 for the first one, a to-do or a title which is going to be equal to, let's say, go shopping, and a done value which is going to be a boolean, and it's going to take false or true, and this basically just sets it if it's completed or if it's not completed. And for the second, I'm going to have 1, and I'm going to say here, instead of go shopping, let's say pick up kids from school, because that's what normal people do, right? And we're also going to have that to false. So now if we do something, we don't actually see anything change, but that's because we need to actually add in up here, but after the input controller, we want to add a few for the, that's not what I meant, a few with the class of to do. And basically what we want to do is a fee for loop for to do in to do. So each to do inside of our to do's array, we then want to say we want to bind a key because this is needed. As you see, if I remove this key quickly, you'll see if I hover over that, it says requires a fee bind key. So we're going to say key is equal to todo.id. Now inside of here, just to test, we're just going to say todo.title. Hit save, and it needs to be in a text. I forgot about that. Hit save, and there you go. You can see the values, the title values here in the actual app. So now we need to actually style this up properly. So in here we're going to use a touchable opacity again, like we did earlier. We're going to give it an onPress method equal to an arrow function, which is going to say toggle done, and we're going to pass through the to-do.id, because what we want this to do is to toggle every time we click one of these, it's going to toggle it as done or not done. And we want a text of to do text done. And on here, we're going to say fee if. So now fee if is a conditional renderer. So you use this to render something if it meets a condition. And in our case, we're going to say to do.done. So if it's done, it's going to render our to do. And the only difference you're going to see between the two I'm about to do, there's going to be fee else, which if you ever used vanilla JavaScript, you'll know fee. An if statement is the conditional, and the else is what happens if this does not, if this doesn't make sense, or if this returns false. And if it's not done, we're just going to remove the class of done. Now, if we hit save, you'll see nothing has happened. Why? Property or method toggle done is not defined. How did I know that was going to happen? So in our methods, let's just quickly create a new placeholder called toggle done and say it like that. Press save, and there we go. Although nothing still has not come up. So why is that? It's not giving us an error, which is great, I guess. Oh, sorry, I've put to do, but it's to do.title. Hit save, and there you go. So now if we click these, you can see they flash, but they don't do anything yet. But again, we're going to add that functionality in soon. The next thing we want to do is hook up the actual, well, let's style it. Let's get this all styled up properly first. So now after the touchable opacity, we're going to add another touchable opacity, and we're going to give it an on press, and it's going to be equal to a arrow function that says remove to do, and we're also going to pass the todo.id through. Now inside of here we're going to have a text button where it's a class of remove button text, and we're going to put in here remove. Now on here we want to add a class of remove button and hit save. Now we have this little remove button too, but again it says remove to do, it does not exist. So let's copy this and also add a remove to do func method, which does nothing right now, but looks pretty. Okay, so now once that's done, we want to basically style this up. So let's go down to our style underneath our button text, and we're going to say to do. Now the to do is going to have a flex direction equal to row, a justify content which equal to space between, a padding of 15 pixels, and a background color equal to FFFF. Now I think about it, I don't actually need that. There's no need for the background color, just ignore me. But now if we hit save, you can see it's now in position. We could then say, we then need to say, so after to do, we want to say to do hyphen text, and we want to say font size is going to be equal to 18 pixels. We're then going to say dot done is equal to color and a slightly lighter gray. We're then going to finally add the remove button text values, and I'm going to say font size 18 pixels, and the color is going to be equal just to red. Hit save, and as you can see, we now have a styled app. Let's now add the functionality in. So the first bit of functionality we're going to do is this new to do toggle, and as we're already calling it, we don't really need to do much else. So back in our new to do, we want to say new to do, and this could be is this dot to do's dot push, and we're going to say id is equal to this dot to do's dot length. So we want to get the length of the array and set the id equal to that, and we also want to do +1, I believe. We then want to say title is equal to this dot new to do text. So the data variable we have stored up here in our data path, and then we want to say done is equal to false because we never want them to start off done. Now once that's done, we want to say this dot new to do text is equal to an empty string because we want to reset back to normal. Now let's write up in here, let's say new task, hit add, and there you go, it's already working. So that part of the method is already done. Now let's move on to the toggle done, and this is really simple. We say this dot to do's is equal to this dot to do's dot filter. So, and we're going to say to do hyphen to do dot id is not equal to id, and this is going to have the id passed through. As you can see up in our app here, toggle done passes through the to do.id, and if we hit save and now we tap one, it's now toggled it. Oh, I used the wrong one, I'm sorry, I just filtered through. So this is actually how you delete an item. So let's pass that through to id, so hit save, and now we should be able to remove items without having to instead of removing it when we mark it. Let's hit remove, and there you go. Now let's tackle the toggle done. This one is again very simple. We say this dot to do's is equal to this dot to do's dot map when we pass through to do, and we're using an arrow function equal to a function which is going to say if to do dot id is equal to id, then we want to say, we could do this in one line, to do dot done is equal to not to do dot done. So we're going to set it to the opposite. So we're basically going to toggle it. Every time we click it, it's going to set itself to the opposite of what it already is. And then we're going to return to do. hit save. If we tag one, as you can see, it becomes a lighter grey, meaning it is done. And again, same with that. So now guys, if we type in here, hello world, as you can see, we get our new stuff and it's all doable. We can remove different ones, toggle both, remove both, do what we want with our app. And that is the basics of Vue Native. It's very similar to React Native because it does compile down into React Native currently. They might change that in the future, but for now, I really enjoy Vue Native. I hope it continues to develop and I'll be supporting it hopefully soon. And hopefully it'll become a lot bigger because I really do enjoy Vue Native. It is so beautiful. The UI is easier to use, the setup, how it's set up, so template, script, and style, it's really simple to use, just like normal Vue, and it's what I really enjoy. Easy to use frameworks. Okay guys, so this is all you need to do to create your first Vue Native mobile application. Other than that guys, I hope you enjoyed. If you have any feedback, drop it in the comments below. Leave a thumbs up, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, and also support me on Patreon if you have the ability to do so. It helps me produce more videos and hopefully invest in more gear to use towards the videos, such as this new microphone, as you could probably tell, which was kindly donated by a Patreon himself called Matthew. Other than that guys, thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed this video and I will see you guys in the next one. Peace out.
Always do it on my own, so I gotta get through it. And the only thing I know is to love what I'm doing. Never give up, never slow, till I finally prove it. Never listen to the no's, I just wanna keep moving. Keep my head up when I act, head up, that's a fact. Never looking back, I'ma keep myself on track. Keep my head up, staying strong, always moving on. Feel I don't belong, tell my thoughts to move along. Push myself.